It looks like Strasler on the play. Sorry, these names are reversed. That's Collins Mullen. Wooded Foothills. He'll fetch to 19, finds a mountain. All right, you see it getting updated here. There we go. Cabinet on Human. Noble Hierarch is where Strasler will start. Mullen had a Shriekhorn. Flips over a Stinkweed Imp. He'll dredge that for his second turn. Finds Conflagrate, Bloodghast. Little Shriekhorn again. Life from the Loam and a fetch land.
So this game one, there's no real interaction that's not on the battlefield from the Humans deck. Noble Hierarch is not the best start. I would much rather have something like Ether Vial to give you a burst of a turn 3 or 4 to potentially fight through the good draws from Dredge. Mullins here has a pretty great start with Shriekhorn milling over Stinkweed Imp. Turn 2, bring back 3 copies of Bloodghast. Multiple Faithless Lootings going off. This looks real nice for him. We'll see what the final result is here.
Yeah, doing a lot of dredging. There's already an Amalgam that's going to be coming back. Here's a Creeping Chill. Second Creeping Chill. So Strasler to 14, Mullen to 25.
Yeah, and this is turn 2. This is crazy. 6 power on the battlefield. Drains your opponent for 6. Have a Conflagrate in the graveyard. Prize Amalgam coming back. And I don't think there's any 3 mana worth of plays here that Strasler can have that actually gets him out of it. Meddling Mage is not a bad one, though.
Presumably Conflagrate the name. There was an attack for 1 off the Hierarch. Mullen to 24. Go to work dredging again. Here's some Narcomoebas.
I feel bad for Noah. At least for game 1. This is a lot to deal with.
Yes, big attack. This is turn 3. And we see 12 power coming across. Strasler to 4.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mullen here just casts a Stinkweed Imp. There it is.
Yeah, Stinkweed Imp, go.
Could have potentially flashback to Faithless Looting unless I'm pretty sure the Meddling Mage did name Conflagrate though, because the Conflagrate was just straight up lethal.
Kitesail Freebooter, take your life from the loam and concede is Strasler's play.
The classic looking for information. Again, these players don't know each other's deck list, so all that bit of information can help. Noah going to go to the sideboard here and look for a bit of help to make sure this Dredge matchup goes his way, but it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, the Humans deck has some difficulty casting cards like Rest in Peace. So how does the sideboard look? What is Strasler going to have?
You need to look for cheap or free / colorless cards to really interact with the graveyard. In the past, Humans has played some number of Grafdigger's Cage, but here No Strasler has actually gone for Ravenous Trap, which I quite like. For 0 mana, effectively, you get to knock off your opponent's entire graveyard, including their Conflagrates, their Prize Amalgams, and what have you. And you usually want to do that in response to a trigger of some sort like a Narcomoeba, because then that takes away the Narcomoeba and the potential for like a Prized Amalgam on the same turn. As for the rest of his sideboard, Deputy Detention seems like it could be okay at cleaning up a bunch of Bloodghast and buying you time. Maybe knocking off Prize Amalgam, doing the same thing. But it is going to be vulnerable to something like Conflagrate out of the graveyard. Whirler Rogue can punch through a bunch of those cheap flyers. As the game progresses, sometimes things get scrappy, and a Whirler Rogue can generate a couple blockers while also giving you the ability to get through. And then last but not least, a couple copies of Gaddock Teague probably come in to shut down just Conflagrate.
So here's a nice callback to earlier in the round. I'm looking at Collins Mullen's sideboard. Do you see what I see?
Do you see what I see?
2 copies.
Assassin's Trophy.
2 copies of Leyline of the Void.
Okay, well.
We've seen it all now. Time to retire.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a good run.
We'll catch y'all later.
I mean, Leyline is one of the cards where you don't really want to mulligan for it, because if you have a good hand in a proactive kind of combo-esque deck like Dredge, you don't really want to throw it back looking for one of these sideboard hate cards. Additionally, you know, if you open up on a 7-card hand and you have 2 or 3 copies of Leyline of the Void in it, the second and third one are effectively dead cards in all the matchups where you want one of those effects. So playing 2 or 3 or even 1 sometimes makes sense. Collins here going for 2, you know, it is not something that I have seen before, but, you know, I think that there is logic behind it.
Right, and as far as relevant cards in the matchup, I see 3 Lightning Axe and an Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah, those removal spells are going to be key in taking down Meddling Mage, a card that can name some of those graveyard-related spells that the Dredge deck relies on. Life from the Loam sometimes, Cathartic Reunion, or Faithless Looting if they haven't gone ballistic yet, or just naming Conflagrate since it's going to usually wipe your whole side of the battlefield.
Got any thoughts on Ancient Grudge for Aether Vial?
It's not that bad. Aether Vial is one of the ways where they can get a leg up on you by just generating a lot of mana over the first 4 turns. But I think the game should be basically completely one-sided no matter who wins. Either Humans runs wild on you with like an early Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, or Meddling Mage naming your only relevant card, or the Dredge deck just goes ballistic. I don't think there's much in between there.
Both players have mulliganed to 6. Taking a look at their 6 cards hands. Looks like Strasler is Captain Scrying to the bottom. Mullen is keeping on 6 and also scrying to the bottom.
Yeah, turn 1 Aether Vial here, a great start for Noah. He's going to hope to draw a couple of spells to leverage that extra mana.
Shriekhorn off of Copperline Gorge for Mullen.
2 powerful artifacts doing powerful artifact things. Love me a good artifact.
Vial to 1 for Strasler. Cavern of Souls is a second land.
I mean, clearly the Shriekhorn is better, right? Because it has more counters on it.
Yeah.
Tick down.
They're approaching each other. Shriekhorn puts in Narcomoeba, though. Strasler had a turn 2 Meddling Mage, naming question mark.
That's lucky.
There's a Creeping Chill, too.
Whose turn is over in the feature match area? I bet it's Cedric's.
Probably Cedric's.
Yeah, of course it's Cedric.
Thank you, Cedric.
Confirmation from the director. It's okay. The match is technically still going on, I think. So we did have a pretty quick match in our main. So look like we might have a good game on our hands here.
So there was no Dredger just yet for Mullen. The chill puts Strasler to 17. Mullen now fetching down to 22.
Yeah, could go for a number of things. Life from the Loam to start dredging / making sure you hit your land drops. I think he has a Lightning Axe that he could potentially go for, but he's going to do some chip damage here with a Narcomoeba. Every point counts when you're playing stuff like Creeping Chill, Conflagrate, and even Bloodghast. Once you get your opponent to 10, them having haste can occasionally be a big deal, and he's not blocking here with it.
Noble Hierarch filed an end step. Now Strasler will cast a Champion of the Parish as the Vial is on 2. Attacks with Meddling Mage. Mullen's going to use that last Shriekhorn counter. Finds another Creeping Chill. Strasler to 13, Mullen to 22. Dredge's Life from the Loam, another Narcomoeba, and a Prized Amalgam. That's a pretty good hit.
Yeah, this is, even though Collins hasn't gone Faithless Looting or Cathartic Reunion, or even really done a big dredge, that Shriekhorn has hit a Narcomoeba, multiple Creeping Chills, and like 1 dredge from a Life from the Loam hit a Prized Amalgam. So it's looking quite good, even though he doesn't really have the most explosive of starts.
Cathartic Reunion is one of my front runners for the card the Meddling Mage might be naming.
I mean, that's certainly possible. There are quite a few good hits, but, we'll never know.
Well, wasn't Lightning Axe, and that'll discard Bloodghast.
All right, well, let's see if he unlocked whatever it was. If he has Cathartic in hand, potentially, but my guess is going to bring back Bloodghast, Life from the Loam, just trying to prepare for a future Conflagrate and return that Prized Amalgam.
Yep, shocked to 20 to do that, but there's Bloodghast. Here's Prized Amalgam. We'll go back to Strasler. Pretty anemic board. Noble Hierarch, Champion of the Parish with 0 counters, but Vial going up to 3 here. Reflector Mage, bounce your Amalgam. Champion to a 2. Exalt that up to 3. Kessig Malcontents makes it a 4 and 4 damage from the trigger, so Mullen to 12 at the end of that.
That is a burst of damage, and now if Noah can actually draw maybe a string of Phantasmal Images here, or if Mullins just has a couple of like really anemic draws, Noah might actually be able to steal this game when he looked very far behind.
And as long as he keeps that Malcontents on the table, stuff like Phantasmal Image really increases the closing speed.
Yeah, I love me some Phantasmal Image when you start combining it with Malcontents, for sure.
Bloodghast attacking here for Mullen. Narcomoeba's hanging back.
Yeah, looking to play some defenses. Life total is getting a little low. Plus, if Malcontents comes in with another attacker, he can perhaps trade one off.
Thresh lands on no blocks, goes to 10. See Mullins fetch to 11 here.
think Strasler is kind of expecting to get conflagrated this turn. Doesn't want to put 2 damage on one of his creatures. Wants to force Collins to spend more cards to actually do it.
There's Ancient Grudge, Vial down.
Does he have another discard outlet? Looks like he doesn't.
It just passes back. Ooh, Thalia's Lieutenant for Strasler pumps up the team.
Yeah, it's going to be a big attack here, and I'm assuming Strasler is just going to swing in with everything. If the Noble Hierarch gets hit with a double block on the 2 Narcomoebas, I don't think he much cares. And that'll leave, I think, lethal coming in exactly. That's 5, 9, 12. Sorry, it's 1 over if he double blocks. So he's going to have to at least chump block, maybe double block the Malcontents. That'll shut off some potential Phantasmal Image shenanigans. But he takes a huge chunk, 5, 8, 10, or sorry, 9, down to 2 life.
We'll see exactly what he wants to do. Looking at the double block on the Malcontents.
And the difference, I mean, he can basically chump block again next turn on the 5-power creature, but if he goes to 3, I think he needs to basically sweep up every other creature next turn except for the one that Narcomoeba is going to chump block. So I think this is, I mean, it's an okay block. I'm not really sure how he gets out of this unless he just has a nutty turn.
So just chump block on Champion. Saw it. Mullen fall to 3. He'll dredge Stinkweed Imp. Just more dredgers in there.
Yeah, just dead.
He's got to pick him up, so we're going to go to game number 3 here. Interesting pairing based off of record. You see Mullen was 11-2-1, Strasler at 11-3. Pretty different records at this stage in the tournament.
Looks like Noah Strasler down a game somehow in the negatives.
It's first to 2 wins, not being up by 2 wins. So the -1, you know, it's a hurdle, but it's not over.
I think both players here going back a little bit to the drawing board to see if there's anything they want to change. Seeing Noah side out Thalia Guardian Thraben here is a bit vexing to me. I've always found it in Humans to be one of the better cards, but when you're on the draw, it's not always effective. So siding it out, I don't love it, but at the same time, I understand why.
Shaving copies, on the draw, that makes some sense to me. Redundant copies, very bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're bringing in more like hate cards. Oh, I brought it back in. That's my boy Noah.
Mullen will be on the play for the decider here.
Now you notice the disparity in their records just here in the final rounds. There's not going to be a whole lot of players on 11-2 records, so that means Mullen usually going to get paired up or down, and not a whole lot of people with better record than Collins right now.
Yes.
And likely has already played all of the people who do have a better record than him because he started off 8-0.
So he'll shock off a Stomping Ground to 18, leads on Shriekhorn. Strasler as Champion of the Parish. Shriekhorn finds Prize Amalgam and a second Prize Amalgam and a Creeping Chill before the second draw step. Strasler to 17, Mullen to 21.
Notably doesn't find a Dredger, but it looks like Collins actually has a Cathartic Reunion in hand and a land and a Dredger. So we might have a busted turn 2, and it's just going to depend on whether or not Strasler has that Ravenous Trap.
Yeah, fetches for a Blood Crypt down to 15. Here comes Cathartic Reunion. Stinkweed Imp, Dark Blast discarded.
Yikes.
All right, starts by dredging the Imp. Narcomoeba, Conflagrate.
That's a good hit.
Life from the Loam will be dredged as the second draw. Another Narcomoeba.
That's a good hit.
And Dark Blast. 2
4 Narcomoebas.
4 of a kind. The Dark Blast also just a pretty good card in the matchup. 2 Amalgams come back, no big deal. You see Strasler failed the Ravenous Trap check. Here's Meddling Mage, Champion gets a counter.
I mean, you only got 2. You don't always have it.
Right, Dredge on Stinkweed and Creeping Chill ×2. Strasler to 10, Mullen to 24.
I'm starting to really understand why people like this here Dredge deck. Seems like it's not bad.
Getting a lot of value off of his low mana, no mana effects. Attack with everybody.
Why not? Shove in. Strasler has no real good blocks. This is an attack for 10 with him at 10 because of all those Creeping Chills. It's going to be a chump block because Meddling Mage is likely naming the only thing keeping him alive in Conflagrate.
Shriekhorn activation finds nothing. Here's Life from the Loam.
Remember what I said about most games just being a complete slaughter either way?
Yeah, we're kind of seeing that in action.
This one's it.
This one looks pretty good for Mullen.
Yeah. Send a message. Crack the Horizon Canopy. Paxton and No Strasler defeated by Collins Mullen, and that should be good enough.